Today's headlines. Congress ratifies a unified version of the proposed national budget for 2018. President Duterte supports a recommendation to hold Sanofi Pasteur liable for the flawed Dengvaxia vaccine. Total tourist arrivals in 10 months increased by 11 points this year. A non-government organization bridges the gap between kind-hearted personalities and less fortunate children this Christmas. Good day, I'm Pia Rosas Morato. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Congress has ratified the proposed national budget for 2018 after weeks of deliberations to reconcile the Senate and House versions. The proposed budget sets aside ample allocations for education and benefits for the police and military, among others. Here's our report.
House Appropriations Committee Chair Carlo Nogales announced that the proposed 3.76 trillion General Appropriations Act for 2018 will be ready for President Duterte's signature before Christmas following its ratification by Congress Tuesday. Nogales expects the budget to be signed into law on or before December 19. Among the bells and whistles of the measure are the billions worth of benefits for the education sector. These are the provision of an additional cash allowance for public school teachers, the increase for all state universities and colleges across the board for capital outlays, and the rollout of the free college education program under the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act. Meanwhile, the lawmakers set aside an additional 62 billion pesos for the increase of military and uniformed personnel's base pay beginning January 1, 2018. Also provided for is the purchase of body cameras for the Philippine National Police, 2 single-engine helicopters, housing for PNP and the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and the increase of police stations funds. Also noteworthy is the 3.5 billion peso subsidization under the PhilHealth budget for the cost of healthcare benefits of government employees in the executive branch. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Benj Bondo.
Senators on Tuesday met with palace and security officials in a closed-door meeting to discuss a proposal of President Rodrigo Duterte to extend martial law in Mindanao for 1 year. The Senate and the House of Representatives held a joint session afterwards to tackle Duterte's request. Duterte declared martial law in May 23 to counter attacks of the Maute terror group in Marawi City. Congress extended martial law from July until year-end. Senate President Aquilino Pimentel III expects Congress to pass a 1-year martial law extension based on the votes from the Senate and the House of Representatives. He said that he was convinced that there is still rebellion in Mindanao in the presence of other rebel groups. Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon meanwhile said that the minority bloc will still oppose it for lack of factual basis. He maintained that an armed uprising is an essential factor to justify a declaration of martial law or any extension. Members of the House of Representatives are reportedly in favor of President Duterte's request for a full-year extension of martial law in Mindanao. Majority Leader Rodolfo Fariñas on Tuesday said this was the consensus made following an all-party caucus to listen to a briefing of Malacanang officials on the basis of the extension. Fariñas also said House members raised the need to address the real cause of the insurgency hounding the province. Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdia gave the assurance that they were addressing all of this. In his letter dated December 8, President Duterte asked Congress to further extend the declaration of martial law in Mindanao for the entirety of 2018. This aims to totally eradicate terror threats posed by remnants of ISIS-linked terrorists and by communist rebels in the region.
Congress approved the extension of martial law and the suspension of writs of habeas corpus in Mindanao for 1 more year. Lawmakers from both chambers of Congress voted 240 in favor, 27 against, to extend martial law until December 31, 2018. The Senate voted 14-4, while the House of Representatives voted 226-23. President Rodrigo Duterte declared martial law in Mindanao on May 23, following the attack of the Maute terrorists in Marawi City. The President wrote to Congress asking for the extension, citing continued threats from terrorist groups as the reason. This is the second time martial law was extended by Congress. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Rom Dulfo.
President Rodrigo Duterte supported the Department of Health's recommendation to hold French pharmaceutical firm Sanofi Pasteur accountable for the dengue vaccine controversy. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the president will run after all individuals responsible for the mess. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III earlier said they would demand a refund of the 3.5 billion pesos paid for Demvaxia. They will also press for Sanofi to set up an indemnification fund to cover the hospitalization and medical treatment of all children who might suffer severe dengue. Sanofi Pasteur revealed last November that Demvaxia may cause a severe case of the disease among recipients who had not contracted the dengue virus before. The vaccine has already been administered to more than 800,000 public school children. Thomas Triumph, Asia-Pacific head of Sanofi Pasteur, however, claimed that the Demvaxia is safe and effective despite their November admission. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority apprehended over 2,000 motorists that did not comply with the high-occupancy vehicle lane along EDSA for the first 2 days of its dry run. Data from the MMDA show that the violators were caught through CCTVs and traffic enforcers on the ground. Some 7,000 heavily tinted vehicles were likewise monitored to have violated the proposed traffic scheme. Vehicles with at least 2 or more passengers inside may pass through the HOV lane at the 5th and leftmost lane along EDSA. Motorcycle riders could also use the said lane aside from the motorcycle lane at the 4th lane. Private car drivers with no companions can still use the motorcycle lane's 2nd and 3rd lanes from the MRT. Violators will pay a fine of 500 pesos once this is fully implemented. The MMDA will continue its dry run until Friday. Still to come, total tourist arrivals in 10 months increased by 11 points this year. Caritas Shield leads an outreach program for children displaced in the Marawi crisis. These and more when the PNA Newsroom continues. The country's total trade grew in October this year as authorities predict a positive outlook on exports due to the implementation of trade initiatives with ASEAN and other countries. Here's our report.
The country's total trade grew by 10.4% in October this year after exports recorded its 11th consecutive month of positive growth. The Philippine Statistics Authority said exports increased by 6.6% in October, while imports posted a double-digit growth of 13.1%. The deficit in the total balance of trade in goods hit $2.84 billion, higher than the $2.22 billion deficit during the same period last year. NEDA Director General Ernesto Pernia is optimistic that exports of agricultural products and semiconductors, which continue to comprise a huge portion of Philippine exports, would improve further in 2018. This follows the expected rise in global prices of agricultural exports and world semiconductor trade statistics expected 7% growth in global sales. Pernia said the gains and positive outlook would be accompanied by initiatives such as ASEAN Seamless Trade Facilitation Indicators that could help in reducing trade transaction costs by 10% by 2020. He said the ASEAN-Hong Kong, China Free Trade Agreement, and ASEAN-HKC Investment Agreement signed last month would also increase and facilitate trade in goods and services within the region. He added that Philippine exports will likely remain in positive territory and should pick up due to higher demand during the holiday season. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Crismundo.
The Department of Tourism recorded an 11.54% increase in tourist arrivals this year. International arrivals reached over 5.4 million from January to October this year compared to 2016. South Koreans remain the country's top visitor market, followed by China and the United States. Visitor receipts reached 243 billion pesos from January to September this year, or 36% gain from last year. Tourism Secretary Wanda Corazon Tulfo-Teo also noted a surge in Chinese and Indian arrivals. She is optimistic to hit the target of at least 6.5 million as set by the National Tourism Development Plan for 2017 to 2022. The city government of Davao turned over new equipment for the Davao City Police Office SWAT Group. The turnover was led by Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio and DCPO City Director Alexander Tagum during the flag ceremony. The local police received an assault delivery truck worth 2.6 million pesos to be used for assault operations. SWAT also received 5 armored ballistic shields, which will be distributed to 5 teams. 12 science and technology journalists, including the PNA Calabarzon Bureau, topped this year's Department of Science and Technology Calabarzon 5th Tambuli Media Awardees. For the web-based and online news, the PNA Calabarzon Bureau pioneered as the institutional category awardee, while PNA correspondent Zen Trinidad received the first prize under the individual category. For print and newspaper, Kervin Roy Katikbak topped the individual category awardees, while print institutional awardees were headed by Tribune Post. Daniel Castro and DZJV 1458 Radio Calabarzon won first place for radio. The media practitioners were recognized for sharing the news and information on the DOST Calabarzon's advances in science and technology, improving media coverage and awareness, and in increasing public and netizens' awareness on the regional science programs, projects, and services. Caritas Health Shield led an outreach program with the Philippine Information Agency for children displaced by the conflict in Marawi City. Here's our report.
The Caritas Health Shield Iligan branch, one of the lead in the field of healthcare management, together with Iligan City National High School Batch 1992 and the Philippine Information Agency Iligan Communications Command Center, conducts Salok Kita project. This project aims to provide feeding and psychosocial intervention for young evacuees of Marawi staying in Barangay Buruon Gym Evacuation Center. Caritas and Batch 92 aims to give entertainment to children, while the PIA provides coordination with camp managers of the evacuation center. Distribution of food, dancing and singing with the kids, and parlor games are some of the highlights during the event, which gave the kids immeasurable delight. According to Caritas Health Shield Division Head Mary Jim Makavinta Aninaw,
we have these projects, we call it the Salok Kita project, which is the social awareness drive or projects of our branches. It is a way of showing or giving back our blessings that we have received from Caritas Health Shield, giving back to our less fortunate brothers and sisters. It's Christmas time, so we are showing or giving back the blessings that we have received, for the less fortunate brothers and sisters. I hope we will, but we are planning to continue this project the whole year round.
For PNA Newsroom, Sweet Lukman, Philippine Information Agency.
Up next, Filipinos are urged to stay vigilant following a failed terror attack in New York. A non-government organization bridges the gap between kind-hearted personalities and less fortunate children this Christmas. These and more when the PNA Newsroom returns. The Lanao del Sur Electric Cooperative, or Lasureco, has laid down solutions to the problem of power supply in the conflict-affected barangays of Marawi City. Among the immediate actions are repairing damaged cables and installing transformers and poles to the barangays whose residents have returned. Lasureco allowed consumers to directly send queries regarding connections, responsibilities in maintaining lines, and specialty services. Lasureco also enforced power supply completion in the transitional shelters at Barangay Sagonsongan. Aside from transformers, it is considering renewable energy generation resources to fast-track power in the rehabilitation site. Lasureco assured it will maintain the safety of its systems and provide power needs of its consumers, especially the evacuees who are now gradually returning to the city. The Philippines Football League officially announced that the Panad Stadium in Bacolod City will host Saturday night's PFL showdown between Ceres Negros and Global Cebu. The PFL said the selection of the host stadium for the final match is based not just on the availability of the stadium as well as commercial, marketing, and financial considerations. With the announcement, Negros will now have a chance to clinch the title in a knockout game in front of excited fans. The decision was made hours after Cebu announced its intent to host the final match. In a meeting with officials of the Final Four teams, the league said the Cebu City Sports Complex is unavailable due to lighting and pitch conditions. Much is at stake in the clash, including a spot in next year's Asian Football Confederation Cup. The Department of Foreign Affairs called on Filipinos abroad to exercise higher level of vigilance in the wake of another attempted terror attack in the United States. A morning rush hour explosion at the Port Authority terminal in New York left at least 4 persons injured on Monday. No Filipino was reported among the wounded. The DFA, through the Philippine Consulate General, advised the Filipino community to avoid the area and to observe usual precautions while the investigation is ongoing. The latest attack came more than 5 weeks after 8 persons were killed and 11 others were injured in Manhattan after they were ran over by a truck driven by a follower of the Islamic State. Meanwhile, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the Philippine government joins the international community in condemning the attack. DFA Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano reminded Filipinos traveling abroad to secure the contact details of Philippine embassies and consulates in countries they would be going in case of emergency. An organization in Metro Manila is bridging the gap for people who wish to bring help and joy to less fortunate children. This Christmas, they're also helping spread the holiday cheer to marginalized children. Here's our report.
Christmas is the season of joyous celebration, most especially for kids and the kids at heart. In Metro Manila, a non-government organization called You Happy Events is helping individuals and corporations to bring happiness to children, especially those who have less in life. Since December of 2006, You Happy have done more than 100 events per year. Last week, businesswoman Kathy Binag tapped You Happy for her birthday celebration with ECPAT Philippines, which is an organization that helps victims of child pornography, prostitution, and trafficking. Poor kids in the surrounding community were also invited to the party and enjoy the food and gifts prepared by Binag for them. This week, You Happy helped the Philippine Army for their Christmas party with the 131 abandoned and disadvantaged children at the Nayo ng Kabataan Center of the Department of Social Welfare and Development in Mandaluyong City. Hygiene kits, chocolates, fruits, food, plus other wish lists for the center were given by the Philippine Army to the kids. The children were also joined by contingents from Philippine Army in several game activities. Harvard Uy De Leon, founder of You Happy Events, said their group is founded with the primary aim to provide support and teach values to marginalized children in the country. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Crismundo.
Tropical Depression Urduhar maintained its strength as it heads towards the Bicol region. Pag-asa said Urduhar was last observed at 455 kilometers east of Surigao City with maximum sustained winds of 55 kilometers per hour and gusts of up to 65 kilometers per hour. It is forecast to move north-northwest and expected to intensify into a tropical storm by Thursday. Bicol region, Eastern Visayas, Mimaropa, Calabarzon, and Mindanao and the rest of the Visayas will have cloudy skies scattered to widespread rain showers and thunderstorms due to Orduha. Pag-asa warned fisher folk and those with small seacraft not to venture over the eastern seaboard of Bicol, Eastern Visayas, and the Caraga region, as coastal waters will be moderate to rough. Let's now check out the weather forecast for Metro Manila and the rest of the country.
Philippine National Police Chief Director General Ronald De La Rosa will be appointed as the next Bureau of Corrections Chief. President Rodrigo Duterte confirmed De La Rosa's next assignment Tuesday evening. De La Rosa is set to retire on January 21 next year when he reaches the mandatory retirement age of 56 for police officers. He said he is expected to assume office in the most challenging agency in government. Bucor is an attached agency of the Department of Justice tasked to implement the rehabilitation and safekeeping of prisoners. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Benj Bondo.
Let's take another look at today's headlines. Congress ratifies a unified version of the proposed national budget for 2018. President Duterte supports a recommendation to hold Sanofi Pasteur liable for the flawed Dengvaxia vaccine. Total tourist arrivals in 10 months increased by 11 points this year. A non-government organization bridges the gap between kind-hearted personalities and less fortunate children this Christmas. The holidays are coming soon. It's 12 days before Christmas. For more stories, please log on to www.pna.gov.ph or visit the PNA page on Facebook and Twitter. And that's your daily dose of the hottest news and the latest information that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. I'm Pia Rosas Moreto. Good day.